Sean McDermott said he was, quote, very concerned that his top receiver not there at the mandatory OTAs.
Steph is not here. Everybody else is here at the current time.
It's all understood, you know. At the end of the day, we got to be there for each other. It's not fun losing. It's not fun losing that way.
About our team right now, I'm not going to get into that anymore.
There is something really strange occurring in Buffalo right now, and although I will admit from the very beginning of this video, because I know there's going to be comments saying, Mike, this situation was resolved, I think there's a lot more to the story than what we're getting, so I'm going to put out all the facts out there for you. I'm going to tell you all of the things that have happened to the Buffalo Bills recently that could get me to the conclusion that I currently have about the Bills, and I'm going to talk about the repercussions of this situation. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop, like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The Buffalo Bills were considered to be Super Bowl hopefuls last year. I mean, it seemed like they were just gearing up for a Super Bowl run. They added Von Miller in free agency, who was quite literally going out and saying that he's ring chasing, which I don't really hold against him. I mean, at this stage of his career, I could understand why he would want to get paid a lot of money to be playing on championship contending teams, because it's kind of demoralizing if you're in a situation when you're not contending for Super Bowls in the latter stages of your career, even though it would be your third Super Bowl. And for the most part, the Buffalo Bills had a remarkable season. It seemed like a continuation of the season prior. Josh Allen looked like a machine out there, throwing 35 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. He had the second highest QBR of his career. And this is before I mentioned that he added over 700 yards rushing the ball and 7 touchdowns on the ground, which is why he was selected to be on the cover of Madden 24. Unfortunately for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, they weren't able to make it all the way to the Super Bowl once again, despite only losing 3 games in the regular season, despite having one of the most loaded teams in the entire NFL, despite placing a huge focal point on the defensive side of the ball in the NFL draft last year, and reloading during the trade deadline with acquisitions like Nyheim Hines, for instance. In order to bolster their passing game, the Buffalo Bills would narrowly defeat the Miami Dolphins by 3 points, which, bear in mind, this was a Miami Dolphins team that was without its starting quarterback. They were only able to beat the Dolphins by 3 points despite them being a 2nd seed and the Dolphins being a 7th seed in the wild card, before getting spanked in the AFC divisional round versus the Cincinnati Bengals while they were at home in the snow. Now, there was this huge perception of the Buffalo Bills back then that,
hey, you know, Buffalo is known for how snowy it gets, and Cincinnati doesn't deal with snowy weather,
so Buffalo should have a huge advantage here. And that's partially true. You don't necessarily see a lot of snow games in Cincinnati, although they do get snow. It's not like Los Angeles and Cincinnati. The fact that the Cincinnati Bengals were able to leverage the snowy weather against the Buffalo Bills to defeat them was a reason why the Bills were getting roasted. Now, I will cut the Bills some slack because they were still recovering from the Damar Hamlin incident from a couple of weeks prior. There were 2 severe blizzards at the time. There was a major one during Christmas that actually ended up in the loss of life of dozens in Erie County. Bills owner was dealing with some health issues as well. And the strange part of this was you had Roger Saffold and Micah Hyde stating that the Buffalo Bills ran out of gas after facing constant adversity throughout an emotionally draining season. So I mainly took this as, hey, the Damar Hamlin situation really messed us up. And I don't blame him. When I saw Damar Hamlin's cardiac arrest for the very first time, I was shaken up myself. And I'm very thankful he's in minicamp and he's going to be... I know. It's great. I know. It's great. I think he's happy too. But lost in all of that was one key moment in the final game of the Buffalo Bills season that did get some sort of recognition, but it wasn't necessarily something that we paid a lot of attention to, mainly because we couldn't really explain it. Throughout this game, there was one particular moment where you saw Stefon Diggs quite literally yelling at Josh Allen, and I really couldn't figure out what this was all about. There were some tabloid rumors about Stefon Diggs being mad at Josh Allen for breaking up with his girlfriend. And I thought that that was so freaking ridiculous that I can't even believe I'm stating it in this video. So my apologies for even bringing it up. My personal guess was Stefon Diggs was just frustrated that Josh Allen wasn't getting him the ball enough, or he was just frustrated to be down 17 points, because at this point the game was over. There was like 6 minutes left to go and the score was 27-10, and the Buffalo Bills offense was on the sideline. So it was definitely not a long shot to suggest that the game was over at this point. So I just took this as frustration. And the main reason I just took this as frustration was because I couldn't really come up with another rational explanation as to why Stefon Diggs would be upset at this point. So this brings us to where we were this morning in a very bizarre turn of events. According to Ari Meirov, Bills wide receiver Stefon Diggs did report to Buffalo's facility on Monday for pre-camp medical testing, but then he didn't show up today, and then Sean McDermott told the media that he was very concerned, which resulted in a bit of a bizarre situation. I mean, Rap Sheet said it himself earlier as well. Bills coach Sean McDermott told reporters that wide receiver Stefon Diggs is not at mandatory minicamp and said he is very concerned about it. Now, this is a very shocking situation, and we have a lot more to tell you, which makes this whole situation very confusing, but it seems like a resolution is coming together soon. You see, every other Bills player reported to mandatory minicamp today, and Stefon Diggs is the only one absent. Now, we all know why players do this. Typically, if a player's doing this, he's saying,
"Hey, I want more money, and I am not gonna show up to minicamp until I get more money."
I mean, you're quite literally seeing it go on with one of the Buffalo Bills' biggest rivals, the Kansas City Chiefs. Chris Jones is nowhere to be found at mandatory minicamp at all whatsoever. I mean, according to Adam Schefter, Chiefs four-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Chris Jones, whom Kansas City is open to signing to a contract extension this summer, is not at the team's mandatory minicamp today. That's more of a formality. We all know what's going on. Chris Jones just wants more money. It makes a lot of sense. But in the case of Stefon Diggs, it's a little bit more strange because Stefon Diggs' contract is a behemoth of a contract. I mean, Tom Pelissero says it himself. Bill Stefon Diggs, who is absent from mandatory minicamp today, is making $24.415 million in 2023, including a $22.745 million signing bonus as part of a March restructure. A mountain of dead cap means his contract isn't really tradable from Buffalo's end, which makes this an unusual situation. But even more so, there is no way that this is about money. I mean, Warren Sharp summarized the whole contract situation very well for us. In 2020, Buffalo trades for Stefon Diggs. They give up a first, fourth, fifth, and a sixth. They pay him as the sixth most expensive wide receiver in the NFL. And then last year, they signed him to an even larger $96 million deal. From 2020 to 2023, the Bills paid him $78.9 million in cash, which is the third most for any wide receiver in the NFL. This spring, they paid him over $16 million in bonus money, and he still has the fifth largest wide receiver contract in the NFL in both total value and average value. I want you to understand, the Bills quite literally saw the contracts that Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill were getting, and then said, you know what, our wide receiver deserves that type of money as well, and paid him as such. Now, this is where things get even more bizarre, because Stefon Diggs' agent, via Adam Schefter, is saying that, yo, my client was at minicamp. Sean McDermott, what the hell are you saying? Check this out. Stefon Diggs' agent, Adisa Bakari, said his client is in Buffalo and has been in Buffalo since yesterday morning. Took his physical, met with the head coach and GM the past 2 days, and the Pro Bowl wide receiver will be there for the entirety of the minicamp. So if this is the case, why on earth is Sean McDermott saying that he's very concerned? I mean, if Stefon Diggs is there, why would he come out and say that he's concerned? We got more insight via Josina Anderson, where she says that a Bills team source said 20 minutes ago Stefon Diggs was there yesterday, there this morning, and left before practice. What's even stranger about this situation is that Josina was told that private talks have taken place for a while now between Stefon Diggs' camp and the Bills, and there was an understanding that the sides are on page. Thus why Sean McDermott's comments today caught some off guard. There's hope that the head coach will give a clarification soon. Josina then says, I'm told the nature of the private talks is not money related, though the heart of the matter wasn't shared at this time. While a team source said Diggs left prior to practice today after previous meetings, the expectation is he's returning to the facility per source. This whole situation is very, very bizarre. My only guess is he wants to be more involved in the offense, I suppose, but it's not like this is the first time Stefon Diggs has been, I guess you could say, a bit of a problem or a bit of a pseudo diva to the team that he was on. He had issues like this with the Minnesota Vikings. There was a reason why why the Minnesota Vikings traded him. So he does have a little bit of a history, but it's not necessarily one that is as big as, I don't know, say Antonio Brown. And I understand maybe he wants to be more of a focal point in the offense, but he got the third most targets in his career last year on the Buffalo Bills. And you would say that his numbers are slightly dwindling, but that's despite playing in less games. Well, one less game. He had the second most highest receiving yards in his career last year, and he had the most touchdowns in a season of his career last year. And a lot of people would say, well, Mike, what about the playoffs? Well, when he was facing off against the Cincinnati Bengals, he was targeted in that game 10 times. He came down with 4 receptions and 35 yards. So my guess would be maybe it's an issue with play design. We'll make sure we keep you guys updated as the story develops, because this is a very confusing situation, because his agent is saying that, hey, Stefon Diggs was there, but the coach is saying that he's very concerned. So which one is it? Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.